California carnivores friends. So today I want to talk about Nepenthes edwardsiana and how to grow it. I think most of you, if you've delved into this hobby even a little bit and started making lists of plants that you want, which we know we all do, Nepenthes edwardsiana is probably floating away somewhere on that list, probably pretty high near the top. It's always been on my list, but when I was a little kid, these things were like unicorns, and it was literally like thinking about owning a unicorn someday. And so there wasn't a whole lot of information on how to grow these things because we couldn't get them. But now all of a sudden, they're becoming available, largely through our nursery. We've been sending out these absolutely gorgeous little horticulturally produced Nepenthes edwardsianas. And that really relieves poaching pressure, because before, most of the edwardsianas that you would see in collections were poached or slowly, insanely slowly grown from seed, like these two plants are here. So these are our old seed-grown edwardsianas. Obviously, we've had some success with that, and we've been able to make these new ones for you. And so Daniela thought it'd be a good idea if I made a brief video, or maybe long, about how to take care of these things now that the unicorns are obtainable. So I think we were all really surprised because Nepenthes villosa, which is the squat edwardsiana, and Nepenthes macrophylla, which is the medium squat edwardsiana, both of those are very unforgiving plants, and they want specific ultra highland conditions, which I'll talk about in a second. But one of the things that was surprising about edwardsiana is, even though it is like, you know, it's the biggest, it's the coolest of those ultra highland, highly ridged Nepenthes species, we thought that it would be very unforgiving too, and we were really surprised and pleased to see that they're actually a little more forgiving than those other two. Villosa is the hardest. We have villosas here that are 30 years old and are making pictures like that, and every time it gets a little too hot, they slow down on their pictures and we have to get that momentum going again, and so those are very, very tricky. Edwardsiana, less tricky. And so what is ideal? So when I say ultra highland conditions, as you can imagine, if you have when we think about the tropics, we think about that as like a very warm, hot, sweltering place. And if you've gone somewhere like Hawaii or Brazil and stayed mostly close to sea level, you'd find that to be true. During the day, it's like 80 to 90, it's very, very humid, it's very, very sweltering. But something that people don't conceive of very often is if you go to the top of a mountain in Borneo, it's actually completely different up there. Yes, it's humid, yes, it's warm, and it never freezes, but it does get close to freezing at night. And so ultra highland conditions, what we're talking about is a warming up during the day and a cooling off at night. And depending on where on the elevation is like what depends, like what the temperature requirements are going to be. So that's why we talk about a lowland Nepenthes where it never gets cool at night. But then if you go up 1,000 meters above sea level, that's like the beginning of highland conditions, and it'll be warmer during the day, obviously, than if you're up even higher than that. So these ultra highlanders, which come from very high up, they're very, picture a cloud forest. Most people can picture a cloud forest where it's really misty, mossy, 70 during the day, but never getting very hot. And then at night, if you were camping up there, you would be shocked at how cold Borneo can be up on one of their tall mountains. So it's going to drop down to 40 degrees, maybe even the high 30s some nights, but very, very cold, and that's what these guys want. An ideal temperature swing would be like 70, maybe 80 during the day, and then dropping down to like 40s, 50s, 60s at night. And that can be, there can be a little bit of wiggle room in that swing, but that's what's going to keep an ultra highlander happy. That's what's going to get you, upper pictures on Lowai eventually, and big pictures on Raja. But edwardsiana, like I said, if you have a hottish day, it's actually okay with that. We just moved these two guys last year to this new greenhouse and had to get it all set up. And through all that kind of new transition wonkiness, they've been really solid. Not only have they been, making nice new basil pictures, this one's got a beautiful basil, but they've also been flowering constantly. And we do try to keep the light pretty bright on them. We have 50% shade up above these right now, but we take that down in the winter and just let them get like full winter light. And of course, if you have the space, a small plant like this, I would definitely grow under a nice grow light in a terrarium until you get some size to it. Once they get more like that big across and pictures like that, which on a plant like this isn't that long, it won't take that long. If you're doing it nice in a terrarium, you could probably get this guy up to nice pictures like this big. Probably by next year you'll have pictures like that on one of our nice plants. And the year after, probably pictures like that. And so like, you're probably like 3 years away from making pictures like that under even less than ideal conditions. And again, bright light, but not letting them cook. And that's 90% of your battle. And then if you fertilize, people really, I can't say this enough because people really misconceive the idea of fertilizer, especially with our plants. Most people don't even fertilize their flowers or their veggie garden, and they wonder why things aren't happening faster, and it's always fertilizer. And of course ours have a huge stigma about fertilizing, but over the years we've learned that you can fertilize these things a little bit more than we all thought, and if you do, it'll really take the years off of that. And so you could put 1 slow release Osmocote pellet, maybe 2, in the pot itself, and that'll speed things along. Of course, if you want to find like a nice orchid slow release fertilizer that's a little more expensive, that'd be a nicer thing to use. And you can put 2, 3 slow release pellets, Osmocote pellets, into a pitcher this size, especially being so woody. And that will really push this next pitcher to be much, much bigger. So fertilizing is another super pro tip, but don't go too crazy on that. It's as with all things, balance. And so if you get too excited and fertilize, and you do it every single time, you can definitely kill these guys. So go slow and easy with the fertilizer, but a nice, easy, slow fertilizer regime will make these things grow from this to this way faster. And that's just something that we learned with time. I can't really think of anything else beyond the basics, which is like distilled water. Don't keep these things too wet. Most of you probably aren't going to buy edwardsiana for your first Nepenthes, so some of those beginner lessons you've probably already learned.